Alright guys, this was the first game that I sat down and played with this MonoBlack post deck. The opening hand was absolutely terrible. There was only one land, it was a bog. Definitely not going to keep it and have to mulligan down. Second hand here after dropping a 6 is okay. I have 3 lands available to me, but none of them are posts, and that was not appealing. At the very least, I did have 3 kill spells. Snuff Out could be played very early on thanks to its extra ability, so that was definitely at least somewhat beneficial, and I decided to keep this hand. Now, I was on the draw here, so that is going to help me out a little bit from having to drop down 2 6 cards. I'm drawn to another Spinning Darkness, which is good. If I find myself in a situation against aggro, I can kill through these kill spells pretty fast and be able to get these Spinning Darknesses activated, at least in a relatively early scene. So my opponent throws out a Looterial Core, and this is something that I decided I didn't want to kill right away. I don't want my opponent drawing too many cards off this guy. It's one of these things, like the discard ability kind of slows him down. He is only at 4 cards in hand, so there could be a couple situations where he may find himself in a position where he has to discard something he really doesn't want to. So I'm going to let this live for a while, just in case there's a bigger threat that may come out. Right now, I definitely don't want to waste Snuff Out on, pay 4 life to kill this 1/1. I really, again, don't like my opponent drawing cards, but it's not something I'm going to handle right away. I do have opportunities with Echoing Decay, at the very least, to take care of this later on. So he's going to attack through, discards a land here, and nothing terrible. The Probe does come out, and I absolutely hate people looking at my hand, drives me nuts. But now he does see that I have these 4 cards available. He knows that I can kill the Looter whenever I feel like it, unless he, of course, has a counterspell being in red and blue. But at the same time, I know that the last card he saw is going to be this Spinning Darkness, so I always keep this in mind, and anything I draw afterwards, such as the second Echoing Decay, I know is going to be knowledge that my opponent does not have. So, keeping up on my land drops, I'm hoping at the very least, if I do decide to use Snuff Out to kill this Looter, I'm going to wait until I have 4 land available and can hardcast it, as opposed to paying 4 life. I am going to take some damage off of this Looter, and I just don't want to take an additional 4 life at this point in the game. It's also something where I'm going to set myself into a situation here, because he is playing a blue deck, at least partially blue, where I'm going to be able to use Echoing Decay to try and kill that off, and then when I'm tapped out and he thinks I cannot play this Snuff Out because he knows that I don't have 3 for the Darkness, I'm sorry, I totally mismatched the words in that. In a situation where if he didn't know what I had in my hand, I could use the Echoing Decay to kill the Looter. If he had a counterspell, I would be able to then use Snuff Out for its 4 life ability. But he does know what's in my hand. He knows I can't use Spinning Darkness, but he is still aware that I have this Snuff Out here. He is not aware that I now have a second one and the second Echoing Decay as well. So hopefully I didn't confuse you with my mincing of words there. But he does also get out the Ephemeron. He is obviously running some kind of additional suspend mechanic here. So I am going to attempt at this point in time to kill the Looter. What I wanted to do here is, because he was untapped in blue, I wanted to try and draw out a counterspell and just get a feel if he was actually running counters. Not everyone running blue is running counter control, but it is odds. Odds are that he is usually. So it actually goes through. He allows me to kill the Looter. And I guess maybe knowing the fact that I had a Snuff Out available to me, or he just didn't have a counterspell. So continues to draw more cards and plays a Delver of Secrets, and I'm okay with this because I have plenty of opportunities to kill this off. I am going to be able to do this at any point in time, assuming he does not get another counterspell. Draw into a Crusher here, which is great, but you see we're still building on a completely swamp-filled mana base. Have not seen a post land yet. Definitely disappointing. What I decided to do here is how I have my stop set. I do have a stop set on upkeep and draw, so I wait for my opponent to be able to flip this. I know in his current hand he did not have a counterspell because of my killing off the Looter, so I wait for him to possibly reveal a card, because this gives me the advantage of knowing 1 card in his hand, and it is still before his draw step. So I am going to be able to, in response now, tap out and play the first Snuff Out, and know it will be successful because of the lack of counterspells on the Looter. So now he plays the Ponder, click that off there. Draws a couple cards, plays a land, and out comes Kiln Fiend. And this is another card that is definitely something you want to deal with really early on. But I did decide to here play the Prism first in hopes of drawing into a land. I really was short. You see, again, still I got a Bog, but no Cloud Post, no Glimmer Post. Definitely not helping me out. I do play the Bog at the very least, and I will use the Echoing Decay at this point in time to kill off the Kiln Fiend. It does actually go through successfully. That was another situation where, again, if he had a counterspell in one of those two cards in his hands, I would have still had the Snuff Out available to try and stop that. So I'm keeping this exiled thing open. It is a little crowded now that I played the Bog, but he is using the Suspend mechanic. He does have this Ephemeron, which is going to come out shortly, and I want to make sure that I have this open so I can keep track of these Suspend counters. I know he is going to be able to get this into play the following turn. He also suspends a Rift Bolt, so he's definitely working on a Suspend mechanic. At this point in time, you'll see here in my graveyard, enlarge this a second. I try to keep this open when I'm actually playing games, especially when I'm running something like Spinning Darkness, because now you can see I have 3 cards that I am able to use the Spinning Darkness for its remove 3 cards casting cost, as opposed to the 6 that it would normally require. Opponent hits me again with Stagger Shock. Apparently at this point in time he realizes that I'm really heavy on the kill spells, or at least in this draw I have been, so he's going to try and burn me out at the very least. The Ephemeron is going to come into play at this point in time. It is a 4/4, so it is a little out of range of the Spinning Darkness. There's no point in using this on this creature because it will not kill it, so I will of course tap out to play Snuff Out. Now you see I'm building to some really good things here as these resolve. I do have the Crusher in hand, and I also drew into an Essence Harvest. So if I ever finally get to that point in time where I am at 8 mana, I will be pretty good off. I can get the Crusher into play, and then the following turn do an additional 8 life as opposed to just attacking for 8. I will be able to attack for 8 as well as use the Essence Harvest to do 8 additional, if that makes sense. So, getting down kind of low here to 8, drawn to a Cloud Post, which is great. Still kind of wanted the Glimmer Post. I need a bit of life gain, so I'm actually hoping for him to play another creature spell. Hopefully one that will fall within the range of a single Spin of Darkness. So, wishes are granted, and Delver of Secrets does come down. Again, I'm going to wait till the following turn where he has an opportunity to flip this card, so that way if he reveals something, I know what he is drawing into, and then I can kill it. So draw into a Prism here. Bit of a misplay. I tap out a Cloud Post to play the Prism. Because I haven't played a land yet, what you want to do actually is tap 2 of your black mana sources, so that way if you draw into a second Cloud Post, you can play it and tap this for 2. Just something to keep in mind there. But I do draw into the Ninja Rats, which is great. That could come in use later on. I may find myself actually in a situation where I have to just play that instead of getting it in for its ninja cost. So, again, he manages to flip his Delver into the 3/2, and I am going to this time use the Spin of Darkness, removing 3 cards to kill that off. The card revealed is a Fury Charm, which does mean that he was working on kind of a Suspend mechanic for this deck, as we have seen. When you use Fury Charm in a deck, most likely the reason is for the option for the removing time counters from permanents. Not something you usually see in Pauper. I will give him credit for that. So instead of getting land, I draw into a second Crusher, which is disappointing to say the very least. But I am going to put down the Rats, like I said, for the hard cost. I know I'm not getting any other creatures at this point in time, so not really any benefit there. This was the other reason I wanted to play it. I know one card is a Fury Charm in his hand, but he does Lightning Bolt the Rats and killing it off. This means that I once again now have 3 cards in my graveyard that I can use for Spinning Darkness. So it's not really a big loss there to have that rat die. So he plays the Fury Charm after suspending, wait, let's find it here, the Infiltrator Ilcord, which is this 3/1 Shadow. This will immediately put that into play. But thankfully, because he killed off the rat, I am able to use the Spin of Darkness and able to remove that and then go up to 14 life. So things are really starting to turn around for me, and this time I get into another Prism, and you see I realized my mistake. I leave the Cloud Post untapped this time, and I can put that into play. Really not going to have an effect at this point in the game because the cards in my hand are Crushers, and being able to tap the Cloud Post for 2 is still not going to be enough mana to get that into play. I'm drawn to another Prism. This is a little ridiculous. Let's minimize this for a second. I have drawn into all 4 Prisms. I have 2 of the Crushers in hand, and I draw into a third. Definitely not a good position to be in, although I will say that I am at 7 mana, so I am only 1 land away from being able to actually play one of my Crushers. And this, like I said, as soon as I get a Crusher into play, then I can use Essence Harvest in order to do an additional damage. So now I draw into Twisted Abomination, and I have kind of a dilemma here. My thoughts are, well, I can now cycle this for a swamp. That will put me at 8 lands and 8 mana available to play a Crusher on the following turn. Because I will have to, of course, tap 2 to play this. Now, at the same time, that's great, but why not just put this into play? It gives me an opportunity to draw out a Lightning Bolt. It does have the regeneration. Kind of, you hope maybe he doesn't realize it as regeneration. Maybe he'll wait till I am tapped out. Either way, I don't think there is a bad move there to either play the Twisted Abomination or to cycle it for a land. I decided to take my chances here and actually play it. I figured at the very least I can attack through for some damage if I do not get these Crushers out, and I can still use Essence Harvest to do 5 damage to my opponent off this Abomination. So he actually plays a Probe on the follow-up. I imagine it is what he draws, so he is now seeing that in hand I have 2 Crushers as well as an Essence Harvest. He realizes I am 1 land away from being able to play these Crushers, and decides that it is a good idea to concede, and he's definitely right. He was down to 2 cards in hand, 1 just drawn off the Probe, and I can't imagine anything he would have had. Another nice thing, like I said, the Abomination has this regenerate, so if he decided to try and kill it, knowingly I can regenerate it, and it is going to basically stay on the field as long as I'm smart enough to leave 1 black mana available. All his kill spells are going to be burn instead of minus spells, so he's going to stick around the entire game, and it's going to cost him. So there you go, that's the first game. We'll get the other one running here in just a second. Okay, so we're on the second game here. Forgive kind of the breaks in the audio. I am going to have to kind of splice these 3 videos together from the 3 games just because my computer's acting a little funky, and when I try and record too long, it's not saving the files. So opening hand in the second game here is good, not great. We have 2 lands available to us, but we do have an Expedition map. That will give us an opportunity for turn 1 swamp into Expedition map. And we have some creature kill, we have a Rager for some draw later on, so it's definitely worth keeping even though it's only 2 lands. Sometimes, depending on what those 2 lands are, it may not be worth keeping, but get that map into play on turn 1, and my opponent is playing black, and this is going to be exceptionally frustrating. The Vampire does come down 1/1, but this means that my Spinning Darknesses, and also when I get them, the Snuff Outs will not be useful. They cannot kill anything that my opponent plays. Definitely going to be a hard thing to deal with. But didn't draw into a land here, going to have to play my Glimmer Post, and I'm going to use that to crack this Expedition map and search out for a Cloud Post. It's not going to give me anything playable on this upcoming turn, but because it comes into play tap, but still I think it's important to at least get that out there. The faster you start getting that Cloud Post mana generating, the better. So do that, draw into another Spinning Darkness. Now these are essentially useless cards in the deck. All of the Spinning Darknesses, all of the Snuff Outs are completely useless. The only opportunities I'm going to have to use these are if I use them on my own creatures, because my opponent is apparently playing Mono Black. Definitely a hold up when your deck is 5 cards shorter than your opponent, and it's even worse than being a 5 card shorter deck because those 5 cards are still in the deck. They're just 5 dead cards. They are 5 cards in your deck that if you draw them, you can do nothing with. So definitely a bit frustrating. Opponent attacks through and plays a second Bloodseeker. Now this is something, it's kind of the opposite of those Essence Wardens and the Sisters, but I really decided that, you know, he's got 2 of them out. I think it's a good opportunity to kill him. My deck is not very creature heavy, but you know, with some of the recursion and stuff that I can have going on, this could hurt me in the long run, especially when there are 2 ofs. Now I could have waited here until my opponent tried to equip this longbow to something to kill it off, because that would have been a waste of 3 mana for him, but I really felt that getting rid of these Bloodseekers right now was the better play. So, draw into the Replica here, and this is what I was talking about. If I did want to use Spinning Darkness to gain life, I would have to use it on my own cards like the Replica here, and in order to do so, I would still have to give up the opportunity to draw cards, which is why the Replica was in there in the first place. I'm going to put out the Rager, see how this goes. I'm feeling pretty good, even though I am a little mana short at this point in time. Usually these aggro decks, these kind of black weenie aggro decks, don't do too well with the Vampires. They don't like having this much mana, so the more mana he plays, the better off I was feeling. but at the same time, this is the kind of thing that was worrying me. He is running the Winnowers. I'm assuming he's running the Rat as well. This is kind of a typical casual combo for Pauper, the Longbow plus the Death Touch ability. So I figured by attaching that, he's going to start killing shit off. Unfortunately, again, my kill spells available to me are Spinning in Darkness. I do get lucky here with a top deck into a Swampier. That does give me the opportunity to play the Faceless Butcher and will stop my opponent from using this Moonglade plus bow combo. The only thing that is going to hold me back now is I really need to find the other ones, because at this point in time I, again, still have no answers. If he draws into another Moonglaive, then I'm in trouble. Also, if he reaches a point where he has enough mana, he plays this here, and I make a stupid play here. He plays the Rat, I discard the Grim Harvest, and I realized, wait, this is dumb. I can't use these Darknesses. These are what should have been discarded. Who knows when this Harvest might have come into handy. And you'll see later on, it definitely will cost me big time in the late game, mid to late game. But he can reach a point in time where he has mana available and enough creatures that he can attach this Longbow 3 times onto 3 different creatures and do enough damage to kill the Butcher. This is why this was a critical mistake, discarding the Grim Harvest, because if I had discarded a Darkness, I would have had the Harvest available, so if he killed the Butcher, I would have been able to recur it, get it back, and continue to remove the Moonglade, and it would have cost him 9 mana every turn to remove this Butcher, and it wouldn't have been worth it. So I decided here to tap out to play the Replica. I really wanted the card draw here. I drew into another swamp, so cycling this for land is not something that was necessary. Attacking through, the only thing he could do if he wanted was, you know, again, a mistake on his part, was double block the Butcher, and in response to declaring blocking, tap the Vampire to do 1 damage. That would have caused 2 damage from combat, plus the 1 from the Longbow to kill off the Butcher. That is definitely the move he should have made, so I was a little happy that he was not, I don't want to say as good a player, just wasn't aware of the fact that he had a better play on the board. So he does now choose to do this, and I talked about being able to attach the Longbow multiple times. He uses the Longbow to do 1 damage to the Replica, and then passes it over to the Rat, and is going to use the Rat to kill it off. Again, not the most efficient use of the bow. He should be doing this during my turn, you know, so he could use these as blockers if he wanted, and he can kill more creatures. In response to this happening, I am of course going to try and sacrifice this to draw cards, but this is going to cost me the recoverability from Grim Harvest, and it's going to get removed from game. Again, this is, you know, a situation where I said that I definitely was hurt by this misplay, not getting rid of Spinning Darkness and instead keeping those over the Grim Harvest. So luckily for me, I draw into another Cloud Post. I do decide to play the map and draw off this. This way, you know, I keep a Cloud Post in hand. I'm able to get another Cloud Post. It's a play I like to do. I like to keep one in hand and then use the Expedition map. If I had played the first one and then got a second, he knows basically a card in my hand, but by playing the map and getting the Cloud Post and then putting it into play on the same turn, he basically doesn't know that I still have a second Cloud Post. He just knows that I have, you know, that card, whatever it may be, if that made sense. Hopefully it did. So draw into Unearth, and this gives me some opportunities to get back this Phyrexian Ranger that he is about to kill off. And I think that's a better option to bring that back as opposed to a Replica, simply because it automatically draws a card when it comes back. It's a tricky thing at this point in time, because while I can draw cards off the Replica, I was trying to find ways that I could use Spinning Darkness. My only thoughts were waiting until I had Crushers on the field and I could use them to deal damage to the Crusher but not kill it. And hopefully that would have worked a little bit in my favor as far as life gain goes. Really, I was mostly searching for more Cloud Posts. That's what I needed in this game. So I did decide to tap out here to play a Twisted Abomination. This is going to give me opportunities to regenerate versus, you know, things with the Longbow, and if you got another Death Touch, that would be troublesome. But currently it would work well because of the regenerate ability. And I still had mana available to use the Unearth and get this one back. Really was hoping for another land that would have been helpful, but I did draw into a Snuff Out, which is, again, a dead card. So I'm sitting here, we've gone through 21 cards out of my 60 card deck, and I've drawn 3 of the 5 cards that are completely dead, so a bit of bad luck on my part. The misplay definitely hurt me big time in this game, but still, definitely a case of some bad luck. having these 3 available to me. You see, he does finally get back the Death Touch ability on the Moonglade. Or the Moonglove, sorry, I keep calling it Moonglade. So he's going to be able to attach the longbow to that on the next turn. I decided at this point in time I was desperate for card draw. I needed to find one of my other butchers to get rid of this. Did not happen. I did get the other cloud post in place so that I could tap out and put down this Crusher. This was, again, another kind of bad play on my part. I'm like, I see the Crusher, I said, okay, I'm in a good position here. I can finally, start getting him on the defensive because the Crusher will attack. I can start pulling this out. He's only at 6 life. And it went downhill from here. So it's his turn now. He is going to reattach the longbow to the Death Touch ability. He's going to use it to target the Crusher. And what the play should have been here is I should have used both of these Spinning Darknesses, removing... you cast the wand. Oh, I didn't. Okay, this is a mistake on my part. I thought that I had 3 available, but I actually didn't even have the mana available to me to use these Spinning Darknesses. Had I had that, it would have been the right play to use those on my guy before he died. It would have been big time helpful. He plays a Cadaver Imp now, is going to get back one of those Blood-Seeking Vampires. And I make another interesting play call here. I decided that while his Death Touch was tapped out, it was a good opportunity to attack through with all of my creatures and try and thin out his board. He actually this time does make some decent decisions when it comes to blocking. You see now his Vampire is now a 3-2 because I am at 10 life. My thoughts here was he wasn't going to be able to block all my creatures. If he did, they would all die. His would all die. If he didn't, I would have been able to get the Shinobi in and cause him to discard. So I was partially right. It did go the way I expected. He didn't block one of the creatures. I did ninja in the Shinobi to make him discard. Now, again, I'm hoping, okay, I have another opportunity to draw. Hopefully I get into a Butcher. But I really didn't think this entirely through because now his second Death Touch creature is coming back. And he has plenty of mana now. That means that he is going to be able to kill 2 of my creatures every turn. You see, I'm making some bad plays here. Tapping out during my combat phase, something I don't usually do. Put down the Rager, hoping to find a Butcher, draw into a Swamp. Definitely in a bad spot at this point in time. So he does use the one Moonglade to kill off one of my guys, and it gets even worse because he top decks into a second longbow. This means that he doesn't even have to waste the 3 mana to switch the bow back and forth between the 2. Now he can simply attach it on 1 turn, and now he can kill 2 of my creatures on every turn for no additional cost. I make another bad play here as I pass. I don't even bother to attack with the Rager. Had I attacked with the Rager, my opponent would be down to 1 life. Still probably wouldn't have made a difference. At the very least, he would have lost this rat, and it would have saved me 1 damage per turn. But I guess you can argue it was an okay play because he does tap a Winnower to kill it. Really an unnecessary play. He should have simply attacked with all 3, or at least both Winnowers, because then I wouldn't have blocked. Just some bad plays all around in this game. There's so many different things that you can see in this game that should have been done. Get a little bit lucky. I did top deck into a Glimmer Post to get my life up. My only solution here at this point in time, in order to get rid of these Winnowers, I need a Faceless Butcher. And in order to get a Faceless Butcher, he needs to stay on the table. I have to have 2 Faceless Butchers to remove both of these, because if I only remove one, the other is going to use its Death Touch ability and the bow to kill it off and bring the second one back. The other option available to me is to be able to have something like basically any creature with 3 or more toughness, or I'm sorry, power, plus the Harvest, would give me a combo to finish him off. I really needed to stall here, but things get worse. He hits into a Vampire. This is going to give him a total that is enough to finish me off. This gives him 7, and I draw into a Swamp. Really, I was out of answers. I needed maybe an Echoing Decay would have been helpful. It would have at least slowed this down and give me another turn. There were so many bad plays on his part and mine that it really couldn't go any other way. But in the end, the aggro did get the better of me in the fact that I drew 4 cards that were 4 out of the 5 cards that were dead cards in my deck in the first half. Definitely a bit of bad luck added to that as well. Alright. Alright, so game number 3 here. We do have a pretty bad starting hand. Usually I do not recommend keeping a hand like this where most of your hand is lands. I actually did decide I am going to keep this because if you notice here, I am on the draw, and I do have the prism, so that means that there will be another opportunity to draw an extra card. Obviously going to start out with turn 1 Cloud Post. Let's get things moving here. And then be able to get the turn 2 prism. So you see, it kind of worked out for me. I never recommend doing this if you're in any kind of competitive setting, but when I'm playing casual games, I like taking the risk more often. So things aren't going too good. You see, third game, second game in a row, playing a MonoBlack deck. This is obviously going to be MonoBlack control, but playing out rats. At this point in time, I decided that, I talked last game, I made the mistakes, and I was not discarding the cards like Snuff Out, which are dead in this matchup. But I'm actually, because it is so early in this game, all I've seen is 2 swamps and a rat. I'm assuming it's MonoBlack control, but because I'm not entirely sure yet, there may be opportunities where he is playing a second color, and so in doing so, I can play the Snuff Out and the Spinning Darkness. So I'm not going to discard that just yet. If there's another discard spell, then it's a good opportunity to get rid of it. But the first time around, I'm okay discarding a land, especially when I had so many. You say I put the prism out there and I draw into yet another land, so getting rid of that 1 swamp is not so terrible. This is where it becomes, I said if it comes around again, he does play a second rat, and now I think the better play is to discard the Snuff Out as opposed to a land. As you can see, I don't make that. I'm still not sure why. There's something about this MonoBlack matchup that just makes me stupid, I guess, but I have an opportunity now, not playing the Bog. Usually I want to get that down as soon as possible so it is untapped and available, but because I have the Fire Extinct Rager in hand, I am going to put down a swamp so that I can tap out and play it on turn 3. Again, getting Spinning Darkness. There are 5 cards in this deck, and this is just bad luck on my part. There are 5 cards in this deck that are creature kill and that are non-black creature kill. I am not even 20 cards, I'm 12 cards into this deck, and I have drawn 2 of the 5 cards. Terrible, terrible luck today. And feel free to hate on me for complaining about luck, but I'm going to do it because that is not good luck in my opinion. Get started, come down, and we'll kill off my Rager. Something to keep in mind, he is playing the MonoBlack version, so you have to be aware that he does play things like Edicts and the Verdict, so keeping that in mind for when we do eventually get the Crusher out, things will be better off if you have a second creature in play, just so if he has one of those where I get to choose which dies, I can keep the Crusher alive. So he's cleared off my board, and I'm going to have to sit here and take some damage to the rats. He plays Duress, and looking at my hand, non-creature, non-land, the options are pretty easy. There are 2 dead cards and an Essence Harvest, so obviously the card he's going to go with is Essence Harvest. Drawing the Glimmer Post, going to put that down right away so I can try and build up a little of a barrier. It's going to take him a while to beat me down with these rats, but you do have to keep in mind that once they reach 6 in MonoBlack control, that does open you up for Corrupt, and this will be Corrupt to 6. So if I can just build up a bit of a barrier, I think it's going to help me out more. Also, this is going to make my Cloud Post tap for more. It's making me that much closer, basically, to getting this Crusher into play. So I draw into Unearth, and of course you want to make sure you play this. I'm bringing back the Fire Extinct Rager, and I'm making this play before I make my land drop. This way, if I do draw into another land with this Rager, I can play it now. Cloud Post or Glimmer Post, I can play it after the Fire Extinct Rager draws into it. Playing the swamp first would lose you that opportunity to get that post land, which is more important, into play. So he now cycles the Unearth because he does not have any creatures there to play. I am going to take a chance here and attack through with the Rager. There's a couple scenarios that happens here. One, he kills it with a kill spell, and that's not so bad because it shrinks his hand to 2. Second scenario, he decides to block it with 1 or both rats. Not so bad, they're dying. And if he blocks with 1, I keep my Rager. Third scenario, and which actually did happen, is he chooses not to block right away. So I am going to be able to ninja in the rats. This tells me 2 things. 1, he could absolutely decide to kill this rat in response, but at the very least I'm getting the card draw. And 2, he's just got no kill spells in his hand. The rat was enough to prompt the Grasp of Darkness. He does know I have the Crusher, so he is likely to be saving some kind of big kill spell in order to kill that off. But, you know, I'm okay with the rats dying. It does give me an opportunity to at least replay this Rager and draw into another card. And I do get a land. Now I am finally available to tap out and play the Crusher. So he duresses, which is kind of an interesting thing. At this point in time, he knew I had 2 dead cards and a Crusher. So with 4 cards in hand, he was chancing that this one card that was a non-land, non-creature, and it just didn't play out for him. I really don't think that was a great play, but I don't think it would have mattered later either. So, going to be able to tap out now, like I said, and play the Crusher. As you notice, I did not attack first, and I am not going to attack on this turn, because he is playing the edicts and the verdicts. If I had attacked through and he jump blocks with his rats, that kills this off, and that means that his edict is guaranteed to hit the Crusher. By not attacking with the Rager, it gives me 2 choices, so if he does have an edict, he is going to need 2 edicts in order to get this Crusher dead. That is the thinking here with not attacking. Unfortunately, you'll see it does not matter because he did have a Tendrils of Corruption to kill that off. Puts him up to 26, which is definitely frustrating, but now I can feel free to attack through with the Rager. And being at 26, he of course chooses not to block. So now I'm at a pretty bad spot. You notice here I have 9 life, he's got 8 lands and 1 card. If this 1 card is a Corrupt, all he needs is a single additional land drop in order to finish me off. So I am going to use this Expedition map here. The best play here would have been to grab a Glimmer Post. You see I do not make that play. I go for the Cloud Post instead. This is not as terrible. I mean, like I said, the best play here would have been to grab Glimmer Post. This is not a terrible mistake because I do have another one in hand. This means that I can basically build up my life. I went really bold on this. I put out the Twisted Abomination. I am taking an absolute chance here that he does not have, number 1, a Corrupt, which will end the game if he top decks into a land, and does not have, number 2, a Kill spell, because as you see, I've completely tapped out, which means I do not have the regenerate ability available to me on this Twisted Abomination. Definitely a bit of a risky move on my part. So, as you can see, he clearly did at least top deck into a swamp, and will now have the 9 mana available to kill me off if he did draw into a Corrupt. This turn, I do make the correct move. I am going to attack through first, but I do make the correct move and put the Glimmer Post down in order to put my life just out of range of his Corrupt. It will still keep me down to 4 life, putting the game well in his hands, but at the same time, it would not have ended it. It would have at least given me 1 more opportunity to draw into something helpful. So here it is. He's got 2 cards in hand off the 2 cards in hand off the draw. He's at 15. I'm at 13. Things were pretty even. I don't think it was necessary for him to concede at this point in time. I think he still had plenty of chances to get back into this game, especially knowing that one of the cards in my hand was a dead card and not necessary. So I think it was a bit of a premature move on his part, but the Twisted Abomination is very hard for him to kill, especially depending on how many copies of the Grasp of Darkness that he has. He needs those minus spells in order to kill off the Abomination because of the regenerate ability. So again, a bit of a premature concede on his part, but still a decent game, despite the fact that I had to draw into useless kill spells.